Hello, everyone. I'm Dave. I'm a TI, and I'm here with Devorahsang, and she's a TI, and she's been targeted for 10 years, and I'm gonna turn it over to her and let her tell her story. When she says Sharpie, Sharpie, that's Sharpie. Anyway, Devorahsang, thank you for coming on and being brave enough to tell your story. I know it takes a lot of effort and I know when I tell my story, I'm exhausted afterwards. So I really appreciate you being willing to come on here and give your time and effort. So I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right, thank you. Yes, now Dave said a prayer earlier, and I'm just going to go ahead and say another prayer. Heavenly Father, I just ask that you would be with me this day as I do this interview. I ask that you eradicate all fear, and I ask that you keep me focused. This is for your glory and also for the American people. That's why I'm doing it. And I know you see my heart and you see my motives. So I'm asking Heavenly Father that this will not be an unproductive time, that you will make this interview productive for your kingdom and for the good of our country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so I'm Devorah Sang. That's the name I'm going by. It comes from the Book of Judges about the judge Deborah, who was sitting under the palm tree and urged her leader to go against the oppressors. So I also, because I like to sing praises to God and I like to play my guitar, so I use that name. Um, I'm I'm just going to give you a little bit of my history because it seems to matter to some people. Quite frankly, I think if you are being targeted, it's like we really shouldn't be thinking about what is your background, but I know this matters to the world. So I have an undergraduate degree in early childhood education with a certificate in teaching elementary education from Queens College of the City University of New York, and I have a master's degree that's an MA, just an MA in curriculum and instruction from Teachers College of Columbia University in New York. And I did grow up in New York. I was born in New York City, in Brooklyn, and spent my childhood in Queens. And I taught for a very big outfit for 22 years as an elementary school teacher. And I did move out to central New Jersey to the Princeton area for a while. The most important thing about me is that I am a born again Christian. I know this is not like for religious reasons, but I think it's very important to mention these things
Amen.
are important. So I'm actually now out west and I'm in a city in Arizona and I have family here in the city. My mom lives here and my daughter did live here, but she just moved back east to the Atlanta area. Then I have another daughter who is working for Berkeley doing research on large mammals, and she lives in the California area. I would say that I've officially been targeted about 10 years. But I realized that there was a lot happening before I was aware of what targeting was or that I was a target. Um, the targeting had started before that. So I have like so much to say, but I did make a little outline to try to keep myself focused on what I can talk about.
Can you
So
sort of give us could you sort of give us like
an
a
overview.
detail of like what your life was like before targeting and then
Oh, okay.
what it's
Yeah.
like now kind of?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, before targeting, um, I was teaching. I enjoyed my job a lot. It was very hard. It was difficult because I worked in a very urban, at-risk kind of community, but it was always a lot of work, but it was super rewarding. And I loved working with the children and I loved what I did. And then I did work with children in at the churches that I attended and I spent a lot of time in church, like outside of school. But basically, there were a lot of children in my life, and then I let's see, I had two daughters. I basically was a single parent. I was married when I had my children, and something happened to their dad that we'll talk about later. But we had divorced. And I ended up raising them myself because he was out of the picture in 2003. He was deceased. So
Mm.
they were in college, I guess. Let's see, both of them went to college. Things began to get a little bit weird after they left. And so um, I'm kind of thankful because I hear that sometimes children get targeted, and I do believe I do believe my daughters have been targeted in their own way, but it's really weird. One of my daughters
So they
was
waited till you were alone, basically.
Yeah, so one of my daughters, they started targeting her in order to get to me. You know, she had like really rapid weight gain, which at the time I didn't get it. I didn't know that it was like an artificial weight gain that it was actually done to her. And then people would started teasing her in school. Now, but at that time I didn't think of targeting at all. So um I had stopped being an in the classroom teacher and I was in a supervisory kind of position at that point. So I was spending a lot of time on the computer after work, taking care of records for the school and stuff. I was reading a reading coach for the reading program. So I was spending a lot more time away from my daughters at that time, and that's when thinking back on it, I noticed that that's the time they chose to kind of make kids start teasing her at school and this weird weight gain. And I actually had to take off at one point and go to the school and meet with the principal because my daughter got angry and punctured somebody's tire. So they would not let her back in the school. So I went met with the principal, and then I went and took her to. I did what the school recommended, which I don't know if you've watched any of the MK Ultra stories, but if you go over to Imagination Podcasts, there are a lot of stories on the MK Ultra aspect, and some of them are targeted individuals, some are not. But this is a typical thing that might happen in an MK Ultra family, and they find a way to get your children into the psych to see the state psychiatrist. So,
Do you have
um,
any do you have any
yeah.
idea of why y'all are targeted before we get into
Um,
that?
I think now looking back, my grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the army, and they traveled around the world, and he had six daughters. I believe it's coming down from that. I believe the whole family has been studied, like experimented on, is what I'm thinking. So there's a lot of this. I think mine is more on the MK Ultra side, but yeah, I seem to be the primary target in the family, in my branch of the family, and I'm not sure if that's why. I'm not sure why at this point. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure why everything went over because I know they've been watching tons of people from the time my generation. I'm the first year of Gen X. Then there's a reason it's called Gen X. I'll get into that later. But 1965 was when I was born. So I'm 59 years old. And I believe I'm the first that Generation X, and this is a Tani theory. Whoops, I mean, this is a Devorahsang theory. I believe that
I'll
we're the
I'll edit
first
that.
generation to be the first generation to be watched our whole lives. That's what I believe. So I don't have proof of that, but I think that's what it is. So as being part of military families, a lot of this technology that's being used on us was piloted on the families of military workers. Going, if you go back, like that's been done for years and years and years. These are things I'm learning as I've done research, and then when I finally realized. when I finally realized to do research on MK Ultra, that a lot of stuff came out, you know. So there are different levels of targeting throughout the whole society. And then, you know, when it goes overt, it's, you know, sometimes it could be more on the MK Ultra side, sometimes not. A lot of different targets are targeted for different things, but they're also, I notice they're keeping us divided by ch to have certain targets to promote a certain narrative for some of the things that they're doing that are not right to other targets. So it's very interesting. They're totally doing the psychology thing on all of us. I will say that while I was teaching, there was a breach of contract. And when I've been a born again Christian my whole life, but I would say I was about 32 or 33. That's an interesting number. When like God kind of woke me up and said, "You're a wishy-washy Christian, and you know, are you living for me or not? And do you want, you know?" And I didn't know at that time that there might be people watching me, but I just said, you know, I'm gonna live what's in the Bible, or I'm gonna be this wishy-washy Christian. And I kind of woke up and was concerned about that. So then, regarding my breach of contract with the education, I actually was concerned about making it right. And I went to my pastor and talked to him, and he was kind of like, no, it's no big deal. But I'm going to tell you, I believe that might, because they read our minds, and they've been probably been doing it since we were way younger. Um, I believe that might be what put me on this list. So my story is a little different. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm absolutely innocent of everything. Now, it wasn't something horrible, but it was a breach of contract. So, and I'm still, it's out there, and they know it. And I'm like, whatever has to be done to make things right, I will make things right at this point. But also, when you're dealing with uh, a very large school system is like a very large corporation.
Right.
So they're not,
Was you in did you by chance, were you in the GATE program as a child?
now that's something that I just kind of thought about. We didn't have the GATE program
Oh,
in
okay.
New York City. We had special progress. So at a certain point, I do remember we had to take an IQ test. They gave us an IQ test when we were in elementary school. And they did give us I I didn't know there was a reason for this, but they also gave us a test of our hearing. And then when I went to graduate elementary school, they told my parents, you know, your daughter is really smart and tested, you know, up here or whatever. So you have the option. We want to put her in a special progress. We called it SP. So they had a whole bunch of classes, and then half the classes were SP classes and half were not. They were just regular classes. So you could be in an SP class that put you a year ahead in math, or you could be in an SP class that you skip a grade. And so they put me in the one to skip. There was one class in that school that would you would skip eighth grade. So I did that. So yeah, like so when I graduated high school, I was 16 years old. When I started college, I was actually 16 because of that. And so now I realize that special progress, that SP program was the New York City version of probably the GATE program at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
What
So
did you start experiencing with your targeting?
um well, okay, I'll go back to before the official knowing. I began to have a lot of trouble on the job. I called it job persecution. And we were, you know, I was in a school district where in that department they were changing the curriculum all the time. Like they were changing how the curriculum was run, and they would throw it at us last minute. So, you know, like I would be the one because I my kids were away at college and it was just me and I never remarried or anything. So kind of like my job was my life. So I would be the one that would be staying late, trying to get everything ready for the grade. And they would put a lot of behavior problems in my class. I didn't realize that was on purpose. So now I know it was up because I would ask God. Sometimes I'd come home crying, asking God why, why do I always get these children who are very, very difficult? Some of them were violent and that sort of thing. I mean, why do they keep giving me these children? And
Do
then,
you think they were
one day,
trying to run you off, get you to quit?
um, yeah, yeah, and other more nefarious things. But one day I said, "Well, Ton, you're a Christian, so like you pray. Why are you praying for them?" And I'm like, "No." So I started praying for the children and their families. And I would continue to get difficult kids, and they would actually like there'd be kids that everybody in the school knew were difficult who were in a certain class, and they would take these kids and put them in my class like in the middle of the school year and stuff like that. But anyway, it started on the job got weird. I had like I had my supervisor come in, observe a lesson, and ask for the lesson plan. You give her the lesson plan. um there are certain features that had to be in the lesson plan, and they were in my lesson plan. Did you come back and say I didn't have those features? So then I'd have to point them out to her. And then finally it got to the point where she was like, "You never gave me a lesson." And I'm like, yes, I did. And, like I had all my records and I would just resubmit things, but I'm like, what's going on? And then at yeah, at that point, also, I taught the little ones. So at a certain point, I would come in and I would find like the desks have dirt and carvings on them, like as if somebody carved into the desk. And I'm like, 6-year-olds can't do this, And I'm like, what's going on in my classroom? And then we got a certain principal about 3 years before I left that job. We got a principal that nobody liked this woman. She was very well, she was just mean. But she began to come into my room like um every day, and then like let's say the kids might be working, really nicely, where I'm like really proud of them and how focused they are, and she would be like, "There's a piece of paper on the floor, pick that up." And then she would just write me up for something like that. And I'm like, why is she ignoring what the kids are doing? Why is she ignoring the work? So it was things like that. They um I would find like, and then I would clean up the room at the end of the day every day, and then I would come in the morning and find dirt on the floor and stuff on the floor. So I'd be cleaning up now and at night and in the morning. Then we had
So
a
they were
lot of,
making messes at night for you to come into to
yeah,
make it
that's
look like
well,
you didn't clean.
right. And then like there were we put up in New York City, we would put up a lot of like props and posters of whatever we were teaching. Like kind of like when you would prepare for a lesson, you would have to prepare about 3 different ways. So you would have your lessons in the lesson plan, but you also had to have like the written posters up with the teaching point. Like it got to be more and more like that. That's why I said I spent a lot of time at school because it got to the point where I mean, you wanted to be focusing on teaching, but you had to also do a lot more written work. And in order to get this accomplished, you had to spend long hours because they wanted people to be able to walk into the room and see basically all of the teaching up on the wall. So at that point, when I noticed that they weren't treating me fairly regarding the lessons, um, they I would come in the morning and my posters would be on the floor. The ones I had put up the night before would
Wow.
be on the floor. And then at a certain point, I would come in, and I started coming in early when nobody was there, earlier and earlier. And my assistant principal would be standing on the floor in the hallway. She would just be standing there. And when I'd get there, she'd look at me and then walk down, click her with her heels down the hall. And that was, I mean, that was weird. Okay. You get into this dark hallway upstairs, and there's the lady standing there. And when she sees you come out of the stairwell, she, walks down the hall. Um, and what else did they do? They took me out of a regular classroom one day and they put me into, it wasn't really a classroom. I believe it had been a storage closet, or if it was a classroom, it was a classroom made for a small group. And so they put me in this room without windows right next to her office that was it was about a third of the size of the regular classrooms. And I mean, I just was kind of like, what is going on here, And then another time, like we would pack all our stuff up at the end of the year, and then we would come back and before September, before the first day of school, we'd come back and we'd get our boxes out and unpack everything. And then of course you label everything so you know where everything is and you just put the stuff back out in your classroom. Well, one year I came and all of my boxes were gone and nobody knew where they were. And very slowly we began to find boxes all over the school, like in other rooms, here and there. And we had to have our classrooms ready by a certain time so the administration could walk through and see if our classrooms met the parameters of what was planned for the school. And so it was really hard to make that deadline when my stuff had been moved all around the school and nobody knew where my boxes were. So I don't know if the custodians did it. I never knew who did that, but they scattered my boxes everywhere and I had to seek them out and find them. So I finally got that classroom together. And then we had a we had some things. I found a computer table because, at a certain point it was like the 21st century skills were super important. So we had this whole little tech corner for the students, and I had little ones. So I had found one that was really nice, a nice size just for them. And the assistant principal came in and said, "I'm taking this. I want to give it to so and so in some other classroom." Um, so it was just like really rude stuff like that. And then of course there was lying about I didn't give them a lesson plan, and that went on and on. And I would it got to the point where I would come to work in the morning and I'd be like, you need to put a smile on your face because you're going to see the parents walking their children to school and you feel horrible because you don't know what's going on and they're treating you really badly, but you've got to put a smile on your face for the parents and the children. And that's what I would do every morning. I would like talk myself into happiness. But I mean, and I still enjoyed the teaching part,
Was
you
you
know.
experiencing anything at home, or was it strictly at
Um,
work?
let's see. Well, I kind of didn't notice what was happening at home. Um, but at a certain point, it looked as if people had been in my house. So it was just me. I was in a very nice neighborhood in central New Jersey, and I had an apartment, but there was a beige carpet, and I walked barefoot. I never used shoes in the apartment. And at a certain point, um, my carpet looked like it had dark spots in it. And I'm like, has somebody been in here? What's the deal? Then I had a little area rug, and the area I came in, which now I realize it was energy weapons, but I came in and the area rug was like like
Wow.
it had a pattern in it, but the pattern was all melded together, like as if it had been chemically altered in some way. Um, it looked like it was molecularly altered. It was like completely warped, the pattern. I didn't know how to explain that. That the texture of the rug had completely changed. And there were little things going on that I didn't know. Like even when my daughters were there, at a certain point, like they would do laundry, and at a certain point, and I would realize, hey, one of my socks is missing. And I just figured it was from when they were doing laundry. So I started doing the laundry myself. But see, after the daughters left, then that was still happening, where I would be, all of my socks, I kept them together in pairs like everybody does. And I would come and find like a single sock and my socks not in pairs. Um, my wedding ring disappeared. My dad's army jacket disappeared. Um, yeah, another ring that my husband had given me, just a gold ring, disappeared. And then my
Did any
earrings,
of it ever show back up later?
no. And I kind of like I had thought actually this stuff was still when my daughters were there, and I didn't really mention anything to them. And sometimes I would buy like earrings or jewelry, and before I could even wear it, I would find it like broken, like just sitting there broken, where I had bought it and put it and just left it on my dresser or whatever, and I would come in and find it broken. So I thought it was maybe that daughter. Remember the one I said they started doing some stuff to her? I thought it was maybe her doing that. And you know, like later I asked her, after she moved out much later, I said, now you can talk to her and find out. And no, she said she didn't. And I believe her because she wasn't a lying type of person. So like in retrospect, I realized that was them slowly starting what they were doing. Now, what happened
Yeah.
after my daughters left, they the Verizon Fios came through. Now already everything the phone stuff and the cable stuff for the whole building had been plugged into the outside wall of my apartment. I was on the first floor, and it was a two-story building with only like four apartments in it, or
Mm-hmm.
like six apartments, I think. So everything for the building was plugged into my wall. And when Verizon Fios came through, they plugged that into my wall as well. And so then when I would use my landline, there was a huge loud buzz on the landline to where you couldn't even hear the people you were talking to. So they came back and they fixed that. But after that, weird things like I couldn't hear, like I didn't have tinnitus at that point, but something weird was going on in the apartment after that Verizon Fios thing came in. So after that, things like if something dropped into the carpet, it would actually, if it was plastic, it would actually melt. Like it would be gone. Like whatever was in sticking in the carpet part would be gone. Like for instance, there was a Christmas ornament that and it was just a little person Christmas ornament. It kind of had dropped in the carpet, and it was in the corner of the carpet. It stayed there all year, and I picked it up and the legs were gone. And like I really didn't think about that. I was just like, how did it get broken? But after a while I realized that I would take out if I took out the garbage, or I was taking out the kitty litter, and I put it in a plastic bag. If I put the plastic bag down, when I picked it up, there was always a hole in the plastic bag. Something else that was happening was that every single item that was made of glass, or like the mirrors in the house and the glass in the house, at a certain point, there were little droplets of water all over anything that was hard like that, like or made of glass. There were little droplets of water all over everything, and I'm like, what in the world? What is do because I lived in that apartment for 10 years and none of that happened, whether in the summer or the winter, whether the air conditioner was on or not. There was no condensation inside the house, and that's what I began to notice, like condensation was happening inside the house. And I actually called somebody to come. I began to call people. Oh, I also began to notice little holes in my clothing. And I thought, do we have moths? So I thought there were moths, and there wasn't bug the first. As a matter of fact, there had been occasionally millipedes and occasionally little white spiders had been in that apartment, and those things all disappeared. So that's how you know something chemical something was happening. It was electrical. Something had been placed in the apartment that was, and I don't know if it came when all those wires were put in my apartment or not. But all the little insect wildlife, it completely disappeared and there was
Wow.
nothing alive in there ever again. But
I'm
I'm still
sorry. Hey, can I
looking.
pause this
Yeah.
for just 1 second? I'm getting heated up. I got to get a nausea pill and a hat real quick. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry. They're heating me up. Hold
Okay.
on.
Okay, so the girls are gone. Okay. So the girls are gone, and at a certain point I woke up one day, and I heard this ticking sound in my ear, but I didn't think it was in my ear. I thought something was in the house. I thought there was maybe a mouse in the house. It was little, like a little, kind of like a kind of sounded like a clock, but not like a clock, like a ticking sound. And so I thought something was in the house, and I never did find any mouse or anything in the house. And that sound kind of went away after a while, and I wasn't concerned about it anymore because I would hear it at nighttime. So that's why I thought maybe there was some animal in the house. So I wasn't concerned because it went away after a while. But then, like all of a sudden there are little holes appearing, little pinholes appearing in my clothing. And I thought it was moths, but I didn't see anything. I took the whole house apart. I got plastic bins and started putting my clothes in it because my clothes began to appear with holes in them. And then I said, well, this doesn't make sense because I have a wool skirt, and this wool skirt is not has no hole because I figured an insect was doing it. But I'm like, well, the wool skirt would be the first thing they'd go after, and that has no holes in it. Then, a few days later, that skirt also had little holes. So I had to throw away a bunch of clothing. What else happened? I came in and found I rarely cooked because I didn't eat a lot. So I came in one day and found those pans that are on the stove on your the cooking units on your stove. The silver pans were completely rusted. And
Wow, did
and
that
then
happen like overnight or and within a
yeah,
week
well,
or?
I was so busy that I wouldn't pay attention. I just noticed one day, I'm like, why are my pans all rusted? Like, I don't ever cook on them. So what are they doing rusted? So it probably happened overnight and I was too busy to notice because later on, like now I notice these things happen overnight. And there were other things happening which I didn't notice at the time, but now because everything is ramped up, I'm like, oh, okay, that was them all along, and now they're like doing things on purpose to make me upset. They're doing things fast and very obvious. And like Holly said, some of the physicals, they're doing actual things to my physical person, and they're doing them really fast that it's changing my appearance. So like the way things are now, between then and now, I always exercised. I was pretty skinny my whole life. Um, Sometimes I would get a little bit, I would notice like if a little lump of fat appeared anywhere, I'd be like, if the shape of my legs, because I was really bony. So I had like bony legs and bony arms. And I remember at a certain point I got happy because my legs had some shape to them. And I didn't know what was causing that. But I would wonder, like, that there's no way I should be gaining weight because I eat really well and I've always exercised. And but then I noticed they would start putting articles out saying, you've got to change your routine or else you'll gain weight. Now in retrospect, I know that they can actually they're actually putting weight on me now. But at a certain point also, right before I moved from there, my bicycle tires would always be flat. And I had never had a flat bicycle tire my whole life. And so I would get the tires fixed and they'd be flat again. And it got to the point where like I couldn't even take my bike out because it was always flat. I would come home and the tires would be flat.
Wow.
So
Did you
meanwhile, everything.
are you do you ever experience was you ever experiencing any V2K?
Now that's the thing. I don't have V2K, but there were some things that happened that I thought were God. So maybe they gave me V2K and then decided against it. Um, there was one, and it would always happen when I was in between sleeping and waking. Um, I would be awake but coming out of a sleep. So I heard one time, you have to suffer, and I thought it was God talking to me. And another time I heard, and I will put you in the wilderness and then you'll have to cry out to me, which I don't want to say it wasn't God because I know I'm going to be guilty of blaspheming. Do
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a really kind of nitty gritty thing where you had to be so careful. But I heard that. And then another time I had a friend who asked me, I hadn't talked to her in a while and she called me and I was thinking to myself, I wonder what she wants. And I heard this voice say she's calling you because she wants to borrow money. And later I met with a friend, and sure enough, she did ask, she was asking about borrowing some money. So I just figured, oh, well, God talked to me those 3 times. God is beginning to talk to me. And I would tell my mom about this stuff. And then I also would have some pretty interesting dreams. But I I had a dream that I was in the basement of a church. The church had 2 levels. In the basement of the church, there were people doing all kinds of things that they shouldn't be doing and without clothes. And I had my clothes on, but I was in this place. Okay. And then above, I knew were the people that were about to have a church service. And I'm like, I need to get upstairs to the church service. And I happened to look out. The basement window was at the top of the wall, near the ceiling, and I looked up and I saw a little black boy run by with his clothes all messed up and blood on his clothes. And then I saw a wolf chase after him, and they went around the back of the church. So I ran out and went to look and didn't see anything. And I came back and I tried to tell the people who were doing all that their weird stuff, look, there's a little boy out there. We got to help him. A wolf is chasing after him. And they came to the window for a little bit, and then they wanted to go back to what they were doing. They were disinterested. So I was like, let me tell the people upstairs, and they better not say anything to me because I'm late to the service. you know. So I ran. It was a little country church, just like you see in the pictures. Um, and so I ran upstairs and out to the front and up the 3 stairs, and it had a steeple. It was a white church with a steeple. And there were woods. There was a parking lot, and there were woods across from the church. So I threw the 2 doors open, and there was a white preacher. So I'm a black person. I'm like a light-skinned black person, but they're slowly turning me dark. I'm just letting you guys know that. So I don't know where this is going to end up. But I opened it. It was like a white church, pretty much. The pastor was white with hair parted on the side, totally white bread looking. Okay. And he I told him what was happening, that we needed to go help this little boy. And he put a smile on his face as if to say, as long as I keep this smile on the face, we're not going to have the people be disturbed. But all the people, they acted like I wasn't even there and stared straight ahead. And the pastor kind of ignored what I was saying. And it was like, I knew the pastor was only concerned that the people in the congregation would think everything was okay and that nothing was wrong. And they didn't do anything, and they didn't try to help, and they didn't want to go see nothing. So I turned around, went out of the church, stood at the top of the stairs, and I was like, what do I do now, God? And out of the woods came a leopard and a panther and went in the same direction the wolf had gone. They running. So I woke up. I didn't know what that dream meant, but it was kind of uncomfortable. I was really upset that I was in the basement to begin with, but then I was disturbed over this little kid. So now God has told me. Then the targeting started, and I learned about targeting, and He showed me that the wolves are like the white people, the leopards are the Asians, and the panther was like black people, and the little boy represented people that are vulnerable in this world, that do not have a lot of education, um that kind of have to be taken care of by other, like maybe they're on the government dole, maybe they're not highly educated. He showed me that that was the targeting. What I saw was the targeting, and he kind of showed me that like the church wasn't going to be helping. And in that dream, and I don't know if that's a dream that they gave me or not, but basically that's what happened. Because at a certain point, when I finally decided to move, because my stuff was being tampered with so much, and my job, the job thing just kind of devastated me totally. And having stuff go wrong on the job, because I had all these plans that were based on around my job, and it just, they weren't letting it happen. They even like started keeping me out of meetings and telling me I couldn't go to the meetings, when I had been basically, from being a facilitator, I was the one that would basically make sure all the teachers had all the stuff that they were supposed to bring to the meetings and keep the meeting moving in the right direction. So I was like, I don't understand why this is happening to me. I was totally blindsided by the job thing. And as a Christian, I didn't handle it well at all. Like I went back to all my old stuff, my old things that I used to do. Like not all my old things, but basically I like for instance, at that point an old boyfriend showed up out of nowhere, like contacted me on Facebook and we hadn't seen each other in 20 or 30 years. So basically at that point, instead of turning to God, and I was praying a lot. Like I was turning to God. I was still turning to God a lot, but I kind of just like started talking to this guy. And when I moved across the country, I actually did stop at his house, and he tried to get me to actually stay in Arkansas with him. And I'm like, no, I'm going to my family. So I noticed that the old patterns of having a man or even like having sexual relations that shouldn't have been in a Christian life, that's kind of like what kind of reared its head again. And I thought all that stuff was done for me. So I feel kind of like, in the Bible, when we used to sing this song about the wise man building his house on a rock, and the rain came and the floods came and his house stood firm. And then the foolish man built his house upon the sand and the rain came and the flood came and his house went splat. And that's based on a parable in the Bible. Um, and so I don't feel I was prepared at all, like as a Christian, to deal with the stuff that happened. Finally, like at a certain point, all the men that I was close to these weren't boyfriends or anything. This is while, I'm working in the church and everything, but my friends, I had an older man who was like the age of my father, and I considered him a friend. And he had a daughter, a young daughter, so I would sometimes make food and go there like on holidays and hang out with them. But he would give me advice like a dad would give. My dad died when he was 52 of a heart attack. His mother died 2 weeks, I believe it was 2 weeks before him. And then my my brother died in 2012. And the next year, my close friend's husband, and we used to hang out a lot together, he died. And then another guy who had been a teacher also and kind of had an experience like me. So I would sometimes talk to him. He died, and these people were young. So all of the men that I knew kind of died. My brother died of leukemia out here in Phoenix, and he was
Wow.
gone in 3 months.
Now,
Now,
did they succeed in running you off your job?
yeah.
They did
And
succeed.
right, and kind of like somebody told me, don't, Taran, I think they're trying to frame you. Don't stay around here. Because if you're, let's say if you're a teacher, and this is elementary school. So I mean, I had a degree from a good college, but it's elementary school, okay? You can't mess that up. And especially if you're a fairly intelligent person, you're not going to mess up. And I had a really good work ethic and I enjoyed what I was doing. So if you're doing everything right and you're working with little children, what's the next thing they're going to try to get you for? Think about it. If you're doing all your lesson plans and they try to tell you it's your lesson plans, but they can't because you're keeping records and you're going and correcting the things that they're saying you didn't do, and you're showing them that you did, then after a while, if you're working for children, and these people don't care about children, I'm telling you, like from some of the stuff that was happening, you can tell how bad this program is because they don't care about the children itself. At a certain point, there was a girl who hardly came to school, and she was a beautiful little girl. She hardly came to school, and when she did, I would spend all my time with her. Like I'd spend a lot of time kind of teaching from next to her and keeping her focused and that sort of thing. And at a certain point, there was a little boy who was bothering her, and she kept going up to go over to the little boy, and I could tell he had some issues. And I'm like, I'm not feeling comfortable with the way this little boy is acting. And at a certain point, I did say, no, you have to sit here. And I'm like, don't. She went to get up, and I put her back in the seat. Now, that's all I did. So I was sitting right next to her, so I put her back in her seat, like, you're not gonna go over there again, you know. But anyway, I would do a lot of tutoring to her while teaching the whole class. And at a certain point, she wasn't in school. I thought she wasn't in school again. And, basically, we took attendance every day, so they knew they had records of who was coming to school and who wasn't. But this was a pattern that had been that she would disappear for days. And then I went to at lunchtime to pick up the class and I see her. And I'm like, oh, you're here. Well, where are you? Where have you been? And they had put her in the classroom of the teacher next to me, and they didn't say anything to me about it, about transferring her or anything.
Sorry about that.
So she comes in a few days later, shows up at my door. So I'm like, okay, so she's in that class now. But it was weird and I was suspicious. Like, why are they doing that? Oh yeah. And then at a certain point, a little boy in my class starts going, yeah, cuz Miss Vaughn punched her in the face. So I'm like, no, this was a little boy who would act bad sometimes, but I'm like, but that of all the things for him to say, why is he saying that? And this little girl is transferred out of my class without, without them telling me anything. So I looked at her face and I was thinking, well, since this is a child that's only half the time in school, maybe the mom did something to her and she's trying to blame the teachers. Like what happened, So I looked at her face, everything was fine. I'm like, her face looks fine to me. I don't see any cuts, bruises, or anything like that. So she's not being abused or anything, So then she shows up in my classroom one day and I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be going next door. And she's like, my mommy told me to come here, Miss Vaughn. And I'm like, no. She's like, um, you have to go to the next classroom. No, I'm supposed to be here. And I said, but I think the principal wants you there. And she said, I'm not going to say the person's name, the principal's name, but she said, my mommy can't stand the principal. And then so I was like, okay, go sit down. So till I could get over to the other classroom and call the assistant principal. So I had her sit down. And at that point, I said, take a picture. God told me take a picture of her face. So I took a picture of her and she was doing the work that we were doing. And then all of a sudden the assistant principal came up and she said she was supposed to be, you guys had told her to come back here. And she's like, oh no, she's not supposed to be here. She's not supposed to be. And so she took her out. Now, this mom later on, the mom was like all happy talking about her daughters going into the gifted and talented program. And I think they gave the mother a job with the school. And the little girl never came back, but I had taken the picture and I had blown it up. And I had a weird rash, and it was a traveling rash. It wasn't normal. There was some sort of organism because you could even see like one organism was laid over the other organism in my skin. You saw bent one. They look like welts and wheels, but you had bent ones. I could feel this stuff under my skin moving. It was like a nightmare.
Like Morgellons, maybe?
Yeah, so somebody had told me, like, I started, researching online, like, what is this? I'm freaking out because it was like a nightmare. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And then somebody mentioned Morgellons, and I'm like, but I don't have, it's not Morgellons because, nothing's coming out of my skin, but it was under the skin and you could see it. And at night, it would get really busy, and I would look at my skin and see these welts. And if I woke up in the middle of the night, that's when I finally saw, because first I didn't see it at all. I just felt it and I'm freaking because I'm like, you feel like you have a creature's going under your skin. And then if I started waking up in the middle of the night, then I actually saw it and I took pictures. And once I woke up and these things were all under my skin, in my back. And like I said, they were different shapes, squiggly lines, one crossed over another, one shaped like an L, like a capital L, and I'm like, oh, these are not, that's not a rash. Because mostly when you'd go online, they would say that the doctors would say it's just a rash or something. And
Right.
I was trying to convince my doctor, and she wouldn't believe me. And she's like, here, take these sleeping pills. And I'm like, I'm not, I got the prescription, but I'm like, I'm not taking. Why is she like trying to give me drug? Like, I was suspicious of that too. So, I never took the sleeping pills, and finally I got that picture of, and I was able to take a picture of my back because I have long arms, long skinny arms. So I took a picture of my back, I blew it up, brought it to the doctor, and she then put me on what is that? It starts with I. That one that, yeah, that there's a prescription drug that you can take that will knock stuff out, and it didn't
Zyrtec?
really.
No, not Zyrtec. I can't think of
It,
it.
they sell it at the feed store too.
Oh, ivermectin.
Yeah, ivermectin. So she gave me that, and I don't think it worked, but I began to do all kinds of protocols, and I completely changed my eating. I cut out meat, sugar, pasta. I mean, there were no carbs. I was eating vegetables, and if I ate meat, it was a very tiny bit of meat. But finally, I got Dr. Christopher's parasite formula, and I would take way more. Like I'd wait till Saturday and take like way more than you were supposed to. And I'm telling you, you don't want to know what I saw in that toilet. It was, yeah. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, it definitely looked like something that had been alive. But now I know about the nanotechnology, and they say the nanotechnology is like biology and it's like a worm, but it also has that technology in it. So I'm like, oh, that's what they somehow infected me with that. But so things got really bad with the job, and finally, somebody was, and they, at a certain point, they were just like, "Come on, we don't want you to teach anymore. Come out of the classroom." And they put me in a little room behind the stage, and all kinds of weird things happened in that room. There was a police officer. Her room was across from mine. A couple of times I went out and my phone would disappear, and then I'd come back and the phone was back again. So I don't know. I kind of felt like the police had done something with my phone, but at the time I didn't know all of the stuff that goes on with cell phones. I was really late getting my cell phone too. So I used flip phones for a while. I was late getting the flip phones, and then I was late getting a smartphone. So but I realized that was the goal, that they wanted me to have a
Did you
smartphone.
ever experience any stalking, smear campaigns, anything like that?
Um my stalking is massive. It's to the point where you can't tell it's stalking because, okay, this is what happened. This is when I moved out here to the West to be with my daughter, and I went to live in her house because she invited me. And her in-laws were supposed to leave and move to Texas to be with their daughter. And I said, I'm just going to work. Oh, I had chronic fatigue too, and the doctor would not diagnose it. And finally, I asked him to give me, because he knew other things that were going. I had all kinds of stomach problems. I had weird things happening with my stomach, where sometimes I get to school. Once I got to school and I couldn't, I had to throw up, like, like you, I had to throw up and I couldn't make it. And I had to throw up in the garbage. That was like the first day of school, too. So it was weird. Throw up in the garbage can. One time I had explosive diarrhea where I had to run just in time, get the teacher from across the hall, and I had to use our little bathroom in the classroom, and I had to clean the whole thing up after.
Direct
That's how.
energy weapons calls that.
Right, I didn't know anything about that at that time. So that was all bad. Before my friend that was the teacher, before he died, he said, "Tani, you're a target. You're a target, Tani." And I'm like, well, duh. But I figured I was just thinking of the job, like because they were also getting rid of lots of teachers, and I don't know if it was staged around me to do what they were doing to me, or it was just happening. So that they got rid of a whole lot of teachers at the same time. They were going after them like really hard. They were going after lots of teachers really hard, but nobody said, everyone said it doesn't make sense that they're going after you because you're not in that age group. Like they were pushing out the teachers that were older than me who were about to retire. So I was in my late 40s. So they were pushing out the teachers that were close to their 60s, and they were retiring in droves. Okay, and then they were going after the bad teachers, and everybody knew I had a reputation as a good teacher in that school. So people were like, we don't understand why she's going after you. And then somebody finally, when they were like, "Oh, they're taking you out of the classroom. Tan, you need to get out of here because they're trying to set you up. They're trying to ruin your." And I'm like, "I'm not going to let these people destroy my reputation." So my daughter's like, "Mom, why don't you just come here?" And I came. And when I was my grandson was being born, and I'm like, I need to be there with my grandson anyway. And I said, "Well, what about the in-laws?" And she said, "No, they're moving." So, needless to say, I would come home. I got a job at Walmart because I was super exhausted. All I wanted to sleep all the time. Like I didn't want to sleep, but I would sleep 8, 10, 12 hours and wake up feeling like I hadn't slept. This is when like summertime happened and I wasn't at school. I could sleep like 20 hours, feel like I hadn't slept, and stay up for a couple of hours and then go back to bed. And that's not normal. Okay. So, but I couldn't get the doctor to diagnose anything at all. And finally, I did actually I found a friend. He had the chronic fatigue. His doctor diagnosed him, and I'm like, good, I'm going to go to his doctor. And then they changed the parameters for chronic fatigue syndrome and said that you also had to show signs of fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, well, I don't have rheumatoid arthritis. I just have the fatigue, you know.
Right.
So they changed the diagnosis at that time. No, so I said, I'm gonna get a job at Walmart, peace of mind, and recover myself and just work off my debts because I had some debts, some credit card debts that I had to pay off. And the kids had agreed that I could start my rent because at first I couldn't find a job. When I went to Walmart, they gave me a little test, right? So remember, they're giving a person with a master's degree a little Walmart test for, like, are you a good worker kind of test. And there were some weird questions on there
Did you
too.
put the master's degree on your application?
Yeah, I had my resumes. I
I'm
had
surprised
changed
they
my
didn't say you were
resume.
overqualified.
Right. Well, I changed my resume for retail. Like I made one specifically to do retail work or clerical work. So it was like a retail and clerical person. It was like I said, as long as there's something where I'm standing up, don't I didn't want a job sitting down because because of the exhaustion. So I said, as long as I'm moving, I'll be fine. So let me just go get this job at Walmart. They would only give me a part-time job. They didn't give me a cashier job, and I had worked retail before I started my teaching career. I had worked as an assistant manager at retail establishments. So that didn't make any sense either, and I didn't really think about it at the time because I was just exhausted. And they made me take a test, and when I took the test, they changed the answers on this is Walmart. They changed the answers on the test. I don't know if I maybe should have just used I call them Smile Mart sometimes, but the answers were changed on the test, and I'm like, well, this test is super duper easy. I didn't get anything wrong, and then for the next part, and I told the person that was overseeing, I'm like, hey, they just changed my answers, and he said, be quiet. He actually said, be quiet to me. And I'm like, I
Wow.
just looked at him. So for the next part of the test, I wrote down every single answer. Um, and then, like there had been stuff on the computer too. See, my stuff started with the computer and then they kind of stopped targeting me on the computer. So that I didn't realize. But there was digital stuff happening, and like my new computer got infected and then it got infected again. And then finally, I bought a little Asus, one of those mini laptops to do my work on. That's what I was working on when I left the teaching job. But I didn't realize that was part of the targeting, how much the computer stuff is part of the targeting. And they kind of like let up on that. But so I got that job part-time, and the kids said that I could pay down my debts, and then at a certain point when the in-laws left, that's when I was going to start paying them rent. And I wasn't concerned about that at all, but it was really weird. So while I'm there, I noticed like my son-in-law is like he would walk by with the baby, but he would have the baby like hands out, like as if he didn't want the baby near me. It was really strange. It was a strange way to hold a baby with his kind of when he would pass me, he would put the baby on the other side of him. And at a certain point, Gina's like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I gotta give the baby bath." I was like, "Oh, I'll give him his bath." And she said, "You'll probably let him drown." And I'm like, "Well, this is not my child. My child doesn't talk like that." I knew something was wrong. Something was not right. And I was just kind of flabbergasted. And I'm like, "Why are they acting like that? That's really weird. Why are they saying these weird things? You'll probably let him drown after inviting me here." Like, what? So I kind of ignored it, but I knew it wasn't them. And that's all I can say. I knew that's not the way my child and her husband act. That's not the way they normally talk or act. And then I would come home from work and I would find things wrong in my room. And let's say if I drank a certain drink, like a pink soda, I would find the pink droplets in the room in places the next day, like after work. I would come home and there'd be pink droplets in my room. One day I came home and some of my underwear had holes in them. So I thought, this is me still not knowing about the Target stuff. I thought the in-laws are angry because I'm not paying rent now because I'm paying down my debts, and the debts were going down really fast too. So I was like, maybe this was something that a man would do, I think, to destroy somebody's underwear. So I kind of thought the father-in-law was doing it. And at a certain point, I asked for a family meeting, and they had come in from somewhere, all of them. I'm like, can I sit? Can I talk to you guys? I wanted to have a meeting and talk to all of you. And they all turned their backs on me and just kept going, doing what they were doing. They completely ignored me. And so
Wow.
then I start, and then, so this goes on, and little things are wrong in the room, and I'm trying to tell them, but I'm trying not now. Meanwhile, when my mom found out that I was coming to the town where she and my daughter lived, she goes, you don't you don't need to live with them. You're going to cause them nothing but problems. And I was really hurt. And I'm like, why would my mom say that to me about my child and my you know, grandchild? And but already my mom had been acting a little bit weird because when I would tell her what was happening at school and I would tell her everything that would happen, I'd give her a blow by blow. And she would be at a certain point, she said, "Don't you need to stop talking about it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it." And then after a while, she began to, at a certain point, oh yeah, I had been at the library doing work and I left my keys at the library and I called my mom and I said, "Oh, mom, I messed up. I went and left my keys, my car keys, or I forgot what keys they were, but I left them at the library and the library's closed now." So, I said, "So I'm going to have to, call them and make sure they have them when I'm at work." So I went to work because I guess I had an extra copy of keys or whatever. So I went to work and the principal comes to me and says, "Your mom called and said your keys are at the library." And I'm like, "You mean my mother called the principal to tell her that the keys were at the place that I told her where the keys were?" You know what I'm saying? Like, why would my
Wow.
mom call my boss and make me look bad that I didn't know where my keys were, and I knew exactly where they were, where they had been left. And why would you tell my boss that? Like, why would you do that? So, and then, and then finally, at a certain point when I was telling her the latest thing that had happened at work, she just said, "You're mentally ill," just out of the blue. And I was like devastated. Like, what? Why would my mom say this to me? And I didn't know like about and I didn't know I was a target at the time. So my mom's a born again Christian too. So this is a born again Christian. She's Holy Spirit filled. Like the type that would always talk to everybody about God, the one that brought me to God. Um, but also she's the one that I would say her opinion about me mattered a whole lot. So she was probably the closest one to me, or so I thought. But she could say a word and destroy my whole day. And at a certain point, I had read a book called Boundaries, and I began to employ what this book called Boundaries said. And that's when she kind of like changed her whole way of dealing with me. She got really angry. because I would set parameters and say, listen, certain negative things I'm not going to listen to. And if you say certain negative things to me, I'm going to hang up. I'm letting you know ahead of time that I'm not going to stay on the phone. I'm going to hang up. And she was livid. She didn't like that at all. But I still didn't know. What I found out is that my mom's a handler, and she's a handler in the hive. In other words, um, they've already done all kinds of things to her, and she's she's mind controlled, and her role in the mind control is here's this respected, spirit-filled Christian who is we can use to keep the other one, the target person, in line. And also, she actually said to me one day, and I realized it wasn't her. She said, I'm going to be the gatekeeper between you and the rest of the family. That's when I had moved here. And later on, I brought that up. I'm like, Mom, come on. You told me you were going to be the gatekeeper between me and the rest of. And she's like, I never said that. So things like that started to happen, where she would say these things that were hurtful or weird or suspect, and then later, if I called her out on it, she would say she never said it. So this fusion center stuff, I mean, they are blatantly jumping in and out of people's brains. Like that's out here in this city that I'm in. That's how it is out here. I've never been in a city where I've met so many young white women who have been out on the streets because they messed with drugs, and some of them were like bound for college, and they ended up on the street. Like, and I'm just like, this is not what I came from New York. So I'm like, you didn't see things like that throughout the whole city. There were good parts of the city and there were bad parts of the city. Many parts, the people of color in the poorer sections were dealing with that sort of thing. But then, you didn't see a whole bunch of white people out there dealing with drug problems out on the street. I know things have changed a lot though.
Right.
Anyway, of course, so things began to be messed up in the room, and I'm like, okay, mom actually said, and I don't know why she said it, but she's like, you will cause problems. So I didn't want to cause any problems while the in-laws were there, and I did ask for a meeting. They ignored me, and so stuff continued to get messed up. And I brought a lock for the door, and I came home, and before I could put the lock in the door, the key was gone. So the key was stolen, and then I bought the storage trunks to put locks on. And when I came home, all of the pins in the back of the trunks had been pushed out so
Wow.
that you could get in it from the back. And so I'm not thinking anything weird. I'm not thinking about gang stalkers. I'm not thinking anybody's breaking into my room through the window or anything like that. I just thought maybe the dad was didn't like the setup and wanted me to start paying rent. And so I did ask for the meeting, but they didn't give me the meeting. So finally, I met somebody at Walmart. I was a customer, and I found out he had his own house, and he had an old man renting from his house. And I said, okay. We just went out and had a little, we had a dinner because, I needed somebody to talk to. I had already gone to the churches, and the churches they all said the same thing. Like I had actually called meetings to meet with pastors to say some of the things that were happening, and they were just bit like, you've been talking to me for 2 hours. They all said the same thing. They said that 2 hour thing. You've been talking to me for 2 hours, and that's what they said. And that happened twice, with two different pastors saying exactly the same thing, like a script. Okay, and then if I talk to a female, they'd always say, "That sounds scary." And I was kind of like, "Why are they saying that sounds scary?" I mean, no, it doesn't. It just sounds weird, and like you need help, but not scary, So, and because that's before the scary thing started happening. So, I had given up on like trying to get help from the church. I wrote a letter to another pastor and I said, I think this was after like I was working at Walmart and finally for like almost a year. It was December 2015, December 24th, 2015. Um, I went to do my work. I was folding clothes. I was working in the clothing section, and they also had me at the fitting room and answering phones for the store. So I had weird things like people calling me and asking for condoms and stuff like that. As soon as I would go to the fitting room, the phone would start ringing off the hook nonstop, and people began to come and try on clothes. And then people would come with their phones, like up, like they were taking
Right.
pictures. They were taking pictures of me, and then I would hear people going, "There's Devorahsang." I'd hear little kids like, "There's Devorahsang," and I'm like, "Why are they bypassing?" And then they would come to ask me for help or assistance with something, and I'm like, "Why are they bypassing like 10 other workers and coming straight to me? And how do they know my name?" Okay, so that weirdness, it was really weird. It was like a like it was all at once. And what also happened besides the phone
Was you totally
calls?
isolated at this point? We got about 20 more minutes too.
Oh yeah,
Was you totally isolated going through all this?
um, at that point, I had moved into another house with that person that I met, and there was an old man renting there, and I actually ended up. It turned out to be a honeypot situation. I did have a relationship with the guy, and then he actually asked me to marry him. And then I realized, I'm like, no, he's not a Christian. I really want to be Christian. And I kind of broke off the relationship, but I was still living there. And broke off the relationship because I kind of came to and said, "Hey, you're a Christian now. Don't go backwards. You're going backwards." So, you can't have sexual relations. You have to be and then if you're gonna marry somebody, it's gonna be a Christian. So and he let me stay there. They started paying rent to him and stuff. And I had agreed to clean their house. But the house, so I had agreed to clean their house in exchange for a stay there. And I did that. And more things, there was like more and more dirt in the house. Like I would dust and come back, and there'd be an inch thick layer of dust the next day. So I thought that the old man was pouring dirt around the house. And then my hair began to be cut when I would wake up and my hair would be cut when I woke up from sleeping. And the old man wasn't working. But while after I moved in, one day they were like, "Hey, we have an announcement to make. His social security finally came through. We've been trying to get his social security for years." And his social security came through. And I finally, at that point, I heard about targeting. And so I felt I was being targeted by the old man. And then the man that owned the house began to hoard. He was a truck mechanic, and he began to buy tools from at the secondhand shops every weekend, and he filled the whole house with tools and toolboxes, lots and lots and lots of them. And then he began to buy videos, and there were stacks and stacks of videos all over his living room. And then at a certain point, he covered up the window, because I'd be like, "Let's get some sunlight in here," and then began to not let me open the blinds and say he didn't want people seeing in there. Then weird things would begin to show up in the yard, um, engines and other weird things. And I kind of, at a certain point, and then,
Was he
then I would
targeted?
wait. I believe he was targeted because I said, "What is wrong with this man? Why doesn't he?" Because some things happen in the house, like there were like grooves that appeared in the ceiling where it looked like his ceiling was caving in. All kinds of weird things started happening in his house. Things would be broken and stuff. And I'm like, and I would tell him, and he'd be like, it wasn't happening. Once they even cut a hole in the outside of his house, and he ignored it. I was like, look what they did to your house. He ignored it, completely ignored it. So I said, "What's wrong with this man?" And I had, I didn't have a dream. These people would communicate with me by what would show up on my phone, on the ads of my phone and on the YouTube feed. Like it completely changed from what I was used to seeing. So I know that after I asked that question, I saw a brain with two that was split in half. Like that showed up in my YouTube feed, like things that I wouldn't be looking for. So um now I realize what that means. I believe he was targeted, but then they used him as a handler after that. Now, after that, at a certain point, like when I stopped doing anything with him. And at that point, I began to wake up and my body was messed up. Like my underwear would be ripped. I woke up bleeding and I woke up screaming actually. And he was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, I don't know, but then I found out I was bleeding and I shouldn't have been at 49 years old. I'd gone through menopause early. So, and then after that, like they did things to my private parts. They like changed them. Um, and I realized bad things were happening. Um, oh, and then one day in a voice that was not his, he goes, "Yes, and you do this." And he makes this motion with his mouth. And I'm just staring at him. And then he's like, and then sometimes the gentleman from the back room comes and joins us. And my mouth kind of fell open. And I knew that again, I knew that was not him talking. So, like, in other words, they don't use V2K on me. And everything they would do with V2K, they actually have people talk to me, and these people don't remember what they're saying afterwards. So, and I
Wow.
guess that's the whole you're crazy thing, because you tell somebody, hey, why'd you say this? And they go, I never said it. But they would
Yeah.
basically harass me and also talk to me about some of the stuff that was because it was every morning waking up with something messed up. One day I woke up and my jeans were the the riveted button on my jeans was gone, pulled out of the jeans completely. And you know how those are like in there tight.
Yeah, they're in there.
Yeah, so it was completely gone. And they had at a certain point they started in, and it was in, oh, I can't say the word, Sharpies.
Yeah.
With that,
Sharpies.
I wore a pair of jeans one day, and the next day I went to put it on, and it was not fitting in the backside part. Like it was fitting, but it was snug. And remember, I was like a size 4 or something like that, 4 or 6. And so my jeans weren't fitting the same, and I was like, "What's going on?" And so this continued night after night to the point that I had a job interview, and I bought black pants for the week to work at one of the arenas, and I went to put on the pants and they didn't even fit. Like that's how much they were doing with the Sharpies at nighttime. And they kind of like gave me a heads up ahead of time. They woke me up and let me know about the surveillance because when I had a relationship with that guy when I first moved into his house, they were watching me the whole time. And what they kind of let me know by they had something pop up on my phone and it was basically a it was a claymation photo, which I didn't know about AI at the time, but it was a claymation photo that showed basically a body part, and it was like a huge body part. But I'm like, it was something that had been involved in our sex play of that afternoon. Let's just put it that way. And and
So
these
they were hitting you with Sharpies and
yeah,
then
and
you would
so they
have
started doing that. Yeah, and then they
and
would turn
then
off my
when you would wake up, you would find out everything that happened, right?
right, and I wasn't sure what was happening, but to me it felt like there was sexual stuff. And at that time they were actually feeding me stories of TIs whose like one of those doctors whose girlfriend was being raped every night.
John Hall,
And
yeah.
yeah, so they were
Holly
kind of
actually
like
talked to John Hall back in the day when her targeting
right.
first started.
Yeah, so they were kind of telling me that basically that I guess what was happening was I was being trafficked in that way. And they were letting me know who, like, oh, and maybe you're not having sex anymore, but you're still having sex. Like, it would happen at night. I don't, and the thing is, I would wake up not feeling the same as I used to feel when going to sleep. And I never, for years, I didn't feel rested for years. And then, I began when after that guy said that, and I knew it wasn't him. And later I confronted him, and sure enough, he said, "No, I don't remember saying that." But there were things that the way I was waking up, I felt like this is definitely what he said might be happening. Like I hate to say it, but what he said might be happening. But I'm like, what are they doing? How come I'm not remembering this stuff? So I found out about Rick Edom, RHICEDOM. That is basically that's remote control. And then they erase your memory. Like basically they get in your brain, they
Yeah,
control
like electronic dissolution of memory.
right. And then it's intracranial. It's like they couple their brain onto yours, they take you over. And I'm like, well, am I? Where's the real me when that's happening? I don't know, but I don't remember anything. But there are definite signs, and there were definite signs that sexual stuff was going on. They changed my body parts So other things that I would never do probably were going on as well. Satanic stuff. So there's a real satanic occult side to the stuff that's happening to me. So I began to try to find, I began to sleep in my car. My car was, but they were, oh, they kill switched my car a lot in the middle of intersections and things. They would kill switch my car. And the man, and then I knew, the landlord would act like, and he, remember, he was a mechanic, but he would act like, you know, oh, you just didn't have enough gas in your car. Oh, and they would manipulate the gas meeting too. So I started like saving all my receipts. When I go out, I get gas, I'd save the receipt so that nobody could say, hey, your car's sitting there on empty. That's why it stopped. No, no, I just put gas in there. And so they did that for a while. They would kill switch my car everywhere. And I think that was to build this whole you're crazy thing. Because, look, she goes out and she doesn't get gas for her car and the car stalls out. When somebody would come over, then the needle would be on empty. And
Right.
I mean, this is the stuff that was being done. So I started sleeping in my car, but I found out my car was being remote. They had put stuff in my car to be remote controlled and tracked. And when the stuff started at Walmart and people began to come over to me at Walmart, take pictures, they began to mess up the work. Anything I would clean up with the clothing, like fold any clothing I would fold, I would come back and find it completely messed up. But they would also ask me to like work overtime in other departments. Um, there was one day when they left the magic 8 ball I, all over the store. So, because there was a point where we would go and we would clean up the whole store,
Mm-hmm.
even the departments that weren't ours. So I found this when I went, there were magic 8 balls all over the place, which I didn't know much about it, but I looked at it and the words in the magic 8 ball said, "We can read your mind," and I just kind of laughed, like that's what they all said. Like I was finding these things and having to put them back in, put them in the cart to go to their right department, and there were 8 balls all over the place and they all said, "We can read your mind." And I
Yeah,
didn't
Walmart
believe,
is rough for targets. And
I
we got
said, I
about
didn't
12
believe
minutes
that.
if you
Yeah,
have.
so this continued. Let's fast forward to now. What's happening now is I'm being physically assaulted every night. Yes, they have lasered my face. They have two things going. We're gonna make you big like your mom. They kind of told me that they've been putting more and more fat all over. So I mean, I'm eating one meal a day, but like I'm even thinking I don't know if I think what's happening is whatever's happening at night, they're taking me away from myself. Like I'm not there. Stuff is going on and I don't know what's going on except the next day sometimes I'm in different pants. They've stolen my clothes. Um they've done put stuff in my feet to make them hurt as I'm working at Goodwill. So they've actually expanded my feet by an inch and a half and now they've expanded my feet outward and I had really skinny narrow feet. So they've put something hard in the outside on the outside of each foot. Like it's very physical, it's very painful. Um, they've
Can you
cut my
see it?
hair. Yeah, you can see it. And so I'm
I
actually
think
making,
does it look kind of like a callus?
yeah, they've
Oh,
calloused.
it may be a plantar's wart. I've had those and they're
Uh-huh.
very, very painful.
Well, they're matching on each side, and I never
Yeah.
had those my whole life. So
Well,
they're matched
I'm
on
not
each
saying
side.
I'm saying they probably gave you
Yeah,
plantar's
they
wart.
gave it to me. Yeah. So it's on the side, but they can make it like they can take away the pain where it doesn't hurt. And then now lately they've started making it hurt when I get to work, it'll start hurting. Or when I go to do walking at work because I work in the back, and then at the end of the day we bring all the clothes out. So that's when they'll start making it hurt. But they can take the pain away. Like I can jog. Like I've started jogging because of what they're doing to my body, but it
Yeah.
hurts at the beginning and then it'll go away after a while. So they can actually take the pain away. But these people, I have found gift cards in my car. Okay. Um, I have found at a certain point, I went to the hospital and I asked for the rape kit. And the police were there already. I asked for the rape kit, and he was like sounding like he was going to get it for me. And then he came in. His demeanor was complete. The cop came back. His demeanor was completely different, and he said, "I'm not giving you a rape kit." And then, I mean, I did not understand. At still at the point like the, I didn't know about the police. I was one of those, I was never an anti-police person, and I didn't know there was secret schemes and things that police might be in on. And even when I finally read about it, I kind of didn't even believe it. But also, I can see that there's a certain amount of manipulation where I am. Well, I'm in Phoenix, and Phoenix has the name of what's going on in their name. Like that, this town is not called Phoenix for no reason. So, that rape was happening night after night. I would sleep in my car and go try to find different places. Every time I would wake up to doors slamming and young men getting in their cars all around me. So it was horrific. And then I didn't want to go back to the house where that man was saying that this, was happening or that was happening. And finally, I went and asked for help, although they said don't do that. But when I asked for help, the only thing I did was I mentioned it a certain. I didn't say about my clothes being stolen, my things being broken. They broke my furniture. They did a lot of stuff. I didn't talk about my hair being cut every night. None of that. I just said I believed I was living in a house where I didn't feel safe, that some of my things had been stolen, and that I believed that I've been raped and I can't get help. And that's basically all I said to them. They didn't let me know you had to stay there for 72 hours. Anyway, they ended up forcing me into a place for 3 weeks. And they actually just completely lied. And when they lied, they talked about their own program. And these were words that I didn't know to use and didn't use at the time. They said that I thought my whole family was against me, that they were all in on it. They used the word target, which I would never use. They they like talked about their own program. Then they said, and she says that we're taking her around the city and raping her. And I never said that. I never said any of those things. So
Right.
they basically did perjury and stuck a label on it, stuck a label on me, and I was devastated. And after I came out, I went and I got a job in a factory, and I was kind of devastated, like totally just defeated. And I started smoking cigarettes after not having smoked for 20 years. So that was the next thing. And now I'm trying to quit them again, which it's been like, like every month I kind of go back to it because it's so physical. But now I'm just feeling like I have to leave the city because I've started to find gift cards with my name on it, cards I didn't buy with my name on
Right.
it in my car. So I'm like, what
Wow.
are you telling me? You're gonna make me into a perp? Is that what your next step for not like? That's what I feel like they're remote controlling my car. So I'm like, oh wait,
Well,
my
they're trying
car's
to
been
mind control you into thinking that's what they're going to do. It's
yeah,
all
or thinking
psyops.
that. You think so?
Or they're
Because I'm like,
saying, we're getting paid gift cards to perp you, to do this to you. Yeah, it's really
because
hard to read because they're so this psyops psychological operations go so deep. You never know what
right.
they mean by that. You could take five or six different meanings out of it, probably, huh?
Yeah, my psyops are so weird and not. And I said, my experience as a TI has been different from the other TIs because they're all talking about no touch torture and like they only gave me a little bit of that. Um, like they burnt me once and at one point I had two bruises, a matching bruise on each thigh, and I was burnt. And that's basically all that they've done from a distance. Everything else is stuff that would have to be done if it's done with instruments, it's done close up. Definitely they use lasers. I know that. But they're using the Sharpies to do a lot of stuff. And they've put not just fat under my skin, they've put bone. So like I'll wake up and my pants will be hurt like where they've put new bone because I was very narrow and skinny. So they're actually like using the bone to make me bigger. And like they even when they communicate with me, they communicate via other people, sometimes strangers, and then also um, whatever. Because I've done my research on YouTube and I watch sermons and stuff. So my ads, and now I realize my phone is completely AI. So all kinds of ads and video feeds will come up that I didn't ask for, and I hate it because it's like they're doing the predictive programming thing
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't believe that whole thing about they don't have to show us crap. They've done, basically, they're showing us after the fact stuff they've already done, that they're way ahead. When they finally start showing us stuff, yes, it's happening, but they're way ahead and they've done a lot more. So, like Sabrina Wallace, you should watch her. That's about the total body area network. And I know I was so skinny. I've heard a lot of times they'll put weight on on women so that they can hide the implants and things that they put in their body. And I definitely feel now when I bump into something, it hurts a whole lot, like it never hurt before, like it's really hard. So I'm like, I don't know if it's metal or bone, but they've also messed with my teeth and my jaws. So I said the they're harvesting bone from my mouth and they're injecting it into me. So
Oh,
my skinny feet are no
I
longer
gotta edit.
skinny. I look totally different. And yeah, they're kind of threatening me that they're starting to send me videos that say hybrid, hybrid, hybrid. And then they send me like they they're kind of like tormenting me. They'll send me a lot of Bigfoot videos. And some I just talked to another TI and he said Bigfoot is something that the not the super soldiers, but a certain portion of the military or a certain portion of black ops that has some meaning to them that I know nothing about. But I'm telling you, they have expanded my feet from an 8.5 to like almost size 11. Um, oh, here's something else. Do you ever buy anything and then the things that you buy, they go off the market completely? Things that you've bought your whole life and then after a while they don't sell them anymore?
Holly did Aveeno wipes, face wipes.
Uh-huh.
That happened with her. She loved Aveeno face wipes because it was something to do with her targeting. It kept her face clean, and they just stopped making them last year.
Yeah, so they've done that with me with like tons and tons of stuff. I always like the Bang energy drink, the coconut one. You can't find that anywhere in Phoenix anymore. Then I like
I have a 7 minute video that you may want to
yeah.
look at. I was in the hospital at the time. If you scroll down to my videos all the way down, I'm in a hospital gown. Them ones, there's one called How Handlers Mess Up TI's Looks.
Oh yeah.
You might be interested. It's a 7 minute video, some good information I
Oh,
found about it.
okay. Oh, and I wanted to tell you that what they do is when I had started making videos and then I went back on and found that they would edit my videos, making me sound like I'm crying. Um, Also on recordings, they'll put like food sounds, like as if I have something in my mouth. Um, they change the accent of my words. Like
Wow.
whenever I say and, I'll come back and find that it sounds like I'm saying ond. Like they completely, and I don't know if it's AI doing it or a hacker comes in and edits it. They edit both visually and the sound. So that's why I didn't want to come on because what they have done, and they've been doing this for a long time, but I didn't realize it. They started doing it on Facebook. They change my pictures negatively first, and then they come in and do the stuff to me. So this is like I know a tons of people are watching and tons of people are in my phone. Right now they're trying to like get me to join all these like signal. I have people that I know, like they let me be in church. They do let me go to church. They do let me have friends in church. But if I talk to them about trafficking or any of that, they're just quiet. They just ignore me. Like they just were like, okay, or they'll say, we'll pray.
Yeah. See, I
And
had in 2018, I had every time somebody would reach out to help me, they'd
mhm.
either go in their Facebook and block me and make me think that I was blocked, or Gerald Soulsby, he's a whistleblower, FBI whistleblower. He was trying to help me, and they deleted his whole Facebook right in the middle of trying to help me. He was
Yeah, that's
talking to me
wild.
on face, yeah, and just his whole Facebook got deleted.
And I went to go have the scan done. So I had saved my money. As soon as I heard about it, I'm like, oh no, I'm putting money aside for that. They blocked me from doing that, and they did it by they absconded with the communications from the group that was hosting it. Well, the leader of the group, and I'm not blaming any member of these communities. They're trying to help. So I don't want that you to think I'm criticizing these people that are trying to help. But the leader of the clinic said, "Come on Sunday. We're going to make an appointment for you on Sunday." And then I never heard the exact time. So I kept asking, well, what time? What time? What time? Well, they had the Desiree had already sent me a time, an appointment time, but they never let it get to me.
So they
So,
sabotaged it.
but it wasn't Sunday, it was Saturday, and I was still driving on Saturday. So they're calling. So at a certain point while I'm driving to Texas, they're like, "Where are you? Where are you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, they didn't." And
Right,
and then a few days later, all the emails from Desiree showed up with the time and everything. So I had to
wow,
apologize to her, but I don't know if she even got the apology. When Desiree used to live in Phoenix, and we were planning a meeting together, and when we got to the point where I said, "What time and where will we meet?" Because she said, "Yes, I will meet with you," and then after that, um, I sent her that to ask for the details, and I never heard from her again. But then when I would go on my email, I would see fake emails as if they were from me. And I had, what's her name? Dr. Millicent Black said that she got some emails that I never sent her. So, they're basically trying to destroy my reputation in the community. And I've been concerned because, like I said, night after night, still, I don't know what's happening. There are all kinds of really sick narratives, and I mean sick stuff. Like, like and I
now
don't know if it's true or not true, really happening or not happening, but, I feel like this is a big setup thing where if you are really doing remote control on somebody, and you're and it's a Christian, and you're trying to get me to join Signal and Discord and Zoom, and I kind of have stayed off of Zoom since then. But I
right,
have like people that I met that I don't really talk to anymore, but they keep on sending me their Zoom link to have prayer meetings and stuff. And I kind of stayed away from this stuff because I said every night somebody has me and my phone, every single night, and they
right.
like
Now you
videos.
never elaborated on why you started on why you think this might be happening to you.
Right. No, I thought maybe from my breach of contract when I was talking to the pastor, I thought I wanted to come clean and see what I needed to do to make it right. But I think that it might have been a legal thing for the agency that I worked for, that they wouldn't have wanted me. I think that's what I'm thinking. That they're like, "Oh no, she's going to cause us trouble if she goes out and says this is what happened, and this is where I breached the contract." Well, she could get us in trouble, and that could cost us money, like big money.
Oh yeah,
So,
okay,
so
yeah,
that like this only occurred to me in the last couple of months, because I then went to tell when they started coming after me. I went to tell my principal, listen, because my principal had been acting like they were acting the whole time like they wanted to set me up to get into some kind of trouble with a child. But I said, well, Tan, you do have this one thing that, you felt was wrong, and then you lied to the kid and his mom. You need to go ahead and tell. So I went back. This is after I had already moved, and called my principal and told her, this is the only thing I've ever done. Now, whatever happens, happens. I'm ready. Like if you need to come and get me, I'm here. And I've gone to the police even and asked, like, is there anything that they're after me for? But I said, I went ahead and said, listen, this is something that I did that I thought was wrong. But I'm telling you because I mean they've gone crazy out here. And I thought she had sick somebody on me, and she just and I had wanted her to actually find the child so I could apologize,
right,
and who would be a grown man by now, and she just kind of ignored me. She didn't want to do anything. I was like, so I was about to give her the information, what year I thought it was, and because they keep the photos and they keep, of course, the records, so she could find this person. I haven't been able to find him because I mean, I would apologize personally, but no, and that nothing ever came from it. She didn't. She wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna notify the company, the Department of Education. I'm gonna notify like and now I'm thinking back on that and I'm like, wait a minute. That's probably what got me put on the list once they saw me go to the pastor and concerned. That probably wouldn't have been good for them. And
right.
that's
Yeah,
probably what got me.
corporations, especially like, that's why I'm targeted is from for suing a chicken factory that I worked for is what I'm convinced because that's when my targeting really turned up. Um,
Right.
so, because, I was doing a job 8 hours a day that OSHA said I was only supposed to do an hour and 45 minutes, and nobody wanted to do it, so they passed it off on me. So after doing a job you're not supposed to do because you can get carpal tunnel real bad, like I can write for like 3 minutes with a pencil or pen,
Hmm.
and my hands cramp up so bad. I mean, that's how bad I messed my hands up working there.
Uh,
And I had them on recording and everything, and they knew it. So that's why. And then they fired me, and I still got unemployment because I had all that evidence and stuff. So,
yeah, when
yeah,
it comes to money, things doing to do with big money, evidently, I see that that's a big deal. You know, like if it's going to cost them
right.
money to
I
move in.
have
I'm going to,
one more question, real quickly, before we
okay.
go. How have you been coping? Could you tell the other TIs how you cope? What works for
Okay.
you?
All right. Well, I'm taking the stuff to clean out my liver. I'm trying to do detox. I'm trying to take all of the supplements that I can, the D3 and all of that stuff. But as for like, dealing with the physical stuff, me just being able to go get up and go to work every day and concentrate on work, but I also I read the Bible.
Multitasking is a very good one for all these
Yeah.
technologies.
And that's something I do naturally. And like I probably have subliminal V2K, the kind you can't hear, because something
Right.
has been placed behind my ears, and this is recent. Something's been placed behind my ears. So like I'm concerned about getting to the right doctors, and I'm also concerned about moving back where my daughter is because they're changing my appearance so much. I have a birthmark smack in the middle of my forehead, and they sent me a renewed passport with where there is no birthmark, where
Wow.
my head is completely clear. And I and when I take pictures with my phone, and no, actually they take pictures at the store, but you
It
can
don't
see
show up.
they faded out the birthmark.
Yeah,
I had
I
them take
take
another
pictures of
picture and it's
Holly's
faded out.
burns,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, I can't post this because the burns don't show up in the camera. It's
Yeah,
weird.
they morph them. They morph everything.
Yeah,
Like they totally do that on my phone to everything. So that's why I stopped like documenting online, because they really changed how I came off. They changed a lot of stuff, and then they were doing that weird stuff with my appearance, and they go in and they change my appearance on Facebook and everything. Like they've my little I have two, well, you guys know who I am, but everybody else doesn't. But I have, if you go and look me up on Facebook, there are two accounts. One I can't get into, and the one that I can get into, where it has my face as my profile on my profile picture. They've changed my face completely. Then added, because I
wow.
had more of a narrow face, and they've added fat, and they're injecting color. And then they had the Hive say to me through somebody, "We want a brown chameleon." And I'm like, what, first I was like, just what do you mean by that? But I mean, it's racist, but I'm like, what they're saying is they want, some black person to influence whatever narratives they want it to be, a black person, like that looks black, not like, because sometimes to me, I look black, but, I was very fair skinned. Since sometimes they would have people come up to me and go, "Are you black or are you Spanish?" And I'm like, they know I'm black. Like, what? They always have been kind of doing that weird race stuff with me.
Yeah.
Like it mattered what my color mattered to them a whole lot. So finally, that they've actually changed my body color from, because I was my feet and most of me were as white as you. Okay, and now my body has gotten very dark, and then they kind of showed me that they could do stuff, because they, after I moved here, they changed my mom's body and did all kinds of things to her, and she's not aware of it. So there's weird stuff going on. It happens at night. I don't know how they're doing it.
Well, I appreciate you coming out, and I sent you the link for the how perps mess up TI's looks. I
Okay.
sent you the link to that video.
All right. And then
Um,
also, I just wanted to put out there, if there's anybody who wants to do night, because I feel this is needed, especially for women, night watch, like we're at war, where you sleep for 3 hours and we keep video running because they can put you to sleep. Like if you sit
oh
down
yeah.
they can put you straight to sleep. The person that's supposed to be watching, they can put them to sleep in an instant. So we'd have to approach it like we're on night duty, we're on security guard duty. And I said 3 hour shifts would be good. And if we can get a video camera that's not attached to the internet, to Wi-Fi, in order to ensure to the other person that, because anything can happen. But I'm like, to make sure to show the other person that you were awake while you were on your shift. So and I'm looking for Christians. Basically, I want Christians, but I know, like there's different levels that people can be controlled. And I know there are perps and there are people that know what they're doing out there. And
Right,
I'm
because
asking,
John Hall set up cameras for his girlfriend, and he found out they were mind controlling her to get up in the night and unblock the doors and let the attackers in.
he did
And she
find out.
didn't
Yeah,
know
because
she was doing it.
that's what I think is happening. That's exactly. I didn't want to say it because I haven't heard. I've only heard one other lady say it, and she wrote a biography, and she's basically forced to be a sex slave. That's how they did it. She would get up and walk out, and she's an Asian woman. Her name is Li Yang. Xian is her last name. So she's the only one that I ever heard say such a thing. And then I heard another Asian TI say that people were always threatening to make him a flesh puppet. That's what they call them. And it's basically sleepwalk. I was like, so sleepwalking is part of their technology.
Yeah.
People laugh at it, but I'm like, that's their technology they've been doing for years. But so yeah, I've been concerned, and I feel like we need night watch. And I noticed that people that say they love me, doesn't matter how much they say they love me, um, they refuse to to do night watch. And some of them say they need money. They need them because I'm willing to pay. And some of them say they need the
Right.
money. They
Is there
refuse to.
any way they can get a hold of you if they're interested?
Um, oh yeah, I will. I will.
Reach out in the comments or what?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. My number's out there. It's 480.
No, I don't put your number out there. That's not a
No,
good idea.
no.
Not on
Okay.
YouTube, no.
All right. Well, then you can put my email. We can try it that way.
Right. You want me to put your
Or
email
they
in the
can.
comment in the
Right, you can put
description?
my email and you could put my YouTube channel with that I haven't built up yet, but they can also they can leave a comment anywhere on any of the YouTube videos.
Okay.
So I did,
Is your name hidden on YouTube?
yeah, on that one, I gave you in the email that I sent you, I put my YouTube there.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I got
So
that. Okay.
yeah, it's TV878. No, no, that's not that one. No, that's not the one. It's Hisgirl. And then I forgot
Oh,
the
I know
rest of
which
them.
one. Okay.
Yeah, so you can put that on there, and
All
then
right.
you can put my Gmail address, but basically Gmail kind of has control. Google has control of
Oh
everything.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I did appreciate hearing that. Thanks for that last bit of information. I mean, that doesn't make anything better, but as far as feeling like you see how they can use things to say you're crazy if you're getting up in the middle of the night and they're taking you and controlling you and doing
Yeah, you can't tell
you
nobody that except TIs.
right. So and then so I didn't know that part about
Or
John
John
Hall.
Hall, who's an anesthesiologist for all these people who think that we're totally nuts. He's an anesthesiologist out of Texas who still practices, who knows this is real and speaks out about it. And he's got two books. One of them's called Guinea Pigs, and the
Yeah, I
other
read
one's
that
called
one.
Satellite Terrorism in America.
And it was interesting because the guinea pigs one, if you look at the picture that's on there, that's my
Yeah.
head. That's my head. I don't know where he got that visual from,
Wow.
but now they've changed the shape of my head since then. But I looked at it and I'm like, that is exactly my profile. It was from the top, and you could see the nose, and that's what I looked like. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh my God, that's my head. And I'm like, these people are studying. My daughter, you know what she does? She does data. She collects data and how these large mammals interact with people in the communities, and does tagging and tracking, and it's for UC Berkeley, which UC Berkeley was a that mind control was targeted out there at UC Berkeley. One of the early populations that they tried stuff on the community was out there. And so they started with the open source software, and something with the open source is what's allowing this AI to comment. Because my thing now is very much digital. They're destroying like everything. They've even like when I type, it's like triple and
Oh
quadruple
yeah,
letters
yeah.
will
They
come
change
out,
letters
and
when you type and everything.
yeah, so they're doing like more and more and more of it. And of course, there's really what they're doing with video is censorship with my videos. That's censorship. And also they've been wiping websites. So that started around 2017. And, like there'll be somebody's address on a website and I'll come back later and the address is not there anymore. And
Wow.
they're kind of collecting. It's horrible because some of these people could help. Some of them are Christians that do know about MK Ultra. They know, but what they're doing is they're creating electronic altars. So they used to like take little kids and destroy them until another personality would come out. Well, now they don't have to do that. They can just electronically take people over, and then they're picking the people they feel they can get away with to do it. Then they're doing it electronically because that's where our technology is now.
Right.
But
Well, I hate to cut you short, but I have
yeah.
another interview in like, well,
All right.
I'm going to be
Thanks
doing
for
it. I'm
everything
going
you're
to be
doing.
interviewed in like 20 minutes. So
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for all that you're doing, and I appreciate you and Holly a whole lot.
no problem. I have to do a couple edits in the video because
Yeah.
you said the word Sharpie. So just give me a
Okay.
couple hours to get it done, but I will get it done today.
Okay,
I'm
got
going
it.
let me stop recording right now. Let's see.